Hello there, this is Dan again, and today I want to get into the KDE Neon 5.12.0 Linux distribution, and I want to get into the terminal and show you a little bit about user and group management. So let's go ahead and dive right in. KDE Neon 5.12.0 is based on Ubuntu, and so we'll be following the rules specific to Ubuntu here when we do this. So let's get into the terminal and open the terminal up. And one thing you'll have to remember is I'm logged in as my user account right now, Data Pioneer at the host, which is Data Pioneer KDE Neon. I've got a $$ which means I'm a non-root user, and so I will need to acquire root privileges to do what I need to do in user and group management. However, I do not want to use the sudo command all the time to do that. If you're not familiar with sudo, sudo is a command that allows any user that is a member of the sudoers file or is in the sudoers file, which is under etc sudoers in Linux, to use that command to acquire root privileges one time for what they're doing, and then they get out and go back to the regular user. Since this was the account that was created at logon, initially rather at installation, it's automatically added to the sudoers file. That's not the case for future users. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I've created a password for root, and I'm going to log in as root. So I'm going to use the su, which is switch user dash, and I would normally put a person's username here that I wanted to log into the environmental variable environment for that user. But since I want to do it for root, I'm going to leave that blank. Just hit enter. It's asking me for the root password. Put that in. Okay, and so now I'm logged in as root at Data Pioneer KDE Neon. I also have the $, which means I am root user now, and I can verify that by doing a pwd to see that I'm in the root's home directory /root. / is root is the root directory, / root is the root's home directory. Don't confuse those. If I do a who am I, you can see that I am root, and so I know I'm logged in as root for sure. Let me clear the screen. We're going to be looking at two commands initially, user add and user mod. The first one adds users to the system. Usermod modifies users, and we'll look at a third one, userdel, which deletes users. Okay, so let's look at the man page for user add, and you can see from here that some of the things we can do is we can use a C flag to add comments to the user that we're creating. In other words, describe the user. We can also use the E flag for expiring date on the account that we create in the year, month, and date format with 4 Y's, 2 M's, and 2 D's. We can use a small g to add the user to a group, initially a primary group. We can add a capital G to append users to supplementary groups. We can use the A switch as well with that G, capital G, to do that. And we can use the K flag here option for adding the user's account contents for that home directory for that user with the skeleton contents of the SCEL file located at etc SCEL. I'll get into that in a moment. You need the -m flag for creating the home directory for that user, and you can go down and look at the other things that you can do, including the -s, which is to change the user's shell. Okay. By default, the user that's created in the system uses the /bin /bash, which is a born-again shell. So they use the bin bash shell by default, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, so let's quit that and get out of it. And let's create that first user. So I'm going to do a user add, and I'm going to create the home directory. I also want to give that user a description, and so I'm going to use the C switch and put in double quotes because this is a text string that follows. Ellie May Clampett. Close the double quotes, and then I'm going to use the username for Ellie. And so Ellie's account is created, her home directory is created, and then there should be comments. So let's go and change the directory to home. And you can see if we do a listing, here of the home directory, we have the Ellie home directory and the Data Pioneer home directory as well. Alright, and so now let's go to another file called the password file. So if I do a less on etc password, PASSWD, I can see that Ellie's account was created here. Alright, and then there's the comments of Ellie Mae Clampett. You can see that this is the username. It's a colon delimited line here, so we have a colon followed by an X, which is in reference to the shadow file, and then we have another colon followed by 1001, which is the user ID of Ellie. Started at 1000 with me, and then increments by 1. Then another colon, then followed by the group ID of 1001, same as the user ID. So Ellie belongs to her own group. Another colon, and then the comments that we provided, which is Ellie Mae Clampett, and then another colon, and then the home directory, home Ellie. Okay. I didn't specify a bash, bin bash, other than bin bash, and so that's going to be bin bash by default for Ellie. All right. So let's go ahead and close that out. Let's take a look at the shadow file I referenced here. So let's do a less on the etc shadow file. And this file contains all the passwords information for the users. Okay, so you can take a look at Data Pioneer. You see there's a $sign here after the first colon, and there's a encrypted password that follows that. If we take a look at Ellie's account down here, however, when we created it, notice there is an exclamation mark following that first colon after the username. What that means is there's no password been set up in the system yet for Ellie, and so her account's locked. This colon then that follows next is followed by 17572, which is 17,572, which refers to the number of days after the Unix epoch occurred that this account was created. The Unix epoch was created on January 1, 1970. Okay, so today's date is 17,572 days after that. Another colon followed by a 0. This means this is the number of days we have to wait before we can change the password, since we didn't specify any expiry information with the E switch or the E flag. That means we can go ahead and change the password immediately. Don't have to wait. Then we have a colon following that, and then we have a 99999, which is, for all intents and purposes, forever. This is the number of days after the Unix epoch that we that the account will be expired, and so that means basically forever. If we put in like 30 here, 30 days, then 30 days after the account's created, that account will expire. What follows here, the 7 after the colon, is the number of days that we have the system warning the user that their account is about to expire. So if this were a reasonable 30 days or something else here, then 23 days after that, or after today, Ellie would get a prompt in the system that she needed to change her password, because in 7 more days her account would expire. Okay, so let's get out of this. And let's go ahead and set up the password for Ellie. And to do that, we're going to use the password command followed by Ellie. And then we hit the enter key, and that's prompting us for a password. Let's put in the word password, retype it. And so now the password for Ellie's been successfully created. If we go back into less of etc password, you'll see that indeed there is no exclamation mark here, so her account now is unlocked. Okay, And now if we go to the shadow file that contains the information on the password itself, you see that yes, Ellie does have a password, has a $sign here and an encrypted password just like I have on mine, okay, but it's encrypted so we don't know what it is. We know it's password because we created it, but no one else would know even if they can get in here to take a look around. Alright, so now that we've created the Ellie account, let's look at something else before we create that second account. And that is a file, or a directory rather, called Skell. And that's located at cd, let's change directory to etc Skell. Okay, and there's the skeleton directory. Let's do a listing including hidden files and folders. And you can see that there are 3 hidden files, got a dot in front of it. Bash logout, bash rc, and .profile. And so these are the default things that get added to each user's home directory account when it's created. So let's go back and look at Ellie's that we just created. And if we do a listing here showing hidden files and folders, you can see that Ellie has those 3 hidden files, and that's all that's in her directory. There's nothing else in her directory at all. So let's change the directory back to etc Skell. And what I want to do here is copy the contents of this and create a new skeleton directory, which is customized. I want to add some things to it. And so I want to do a copy recursively, because I want to create the folder structure and files as well. etc Skell, and I'm going to create an etc Skell custom. Okay. Alright, and then let's get into the Skell custom directory. Wait a minute. See, I'm in Skell. Oh, there we go. Let's get into the, let's take a look. Okay. Alright, and so now let's do a listing there, and we see ls.lh, and we can see that we have the Skell custom directory created. There it is, right there. Okay. Alright, so what I want to do now is I want to add things to it. So let's get into the custom directory of Skell. And now I want to make a directory. I want to create a students subdirectory. Alright, so if I do an ls now, I see I have a students subdirectory. And then I also want to create a file. So I'm going to do touch default text. I'm on a listing, and so now I have a file called default.txt and a subdirectory of the skeleton custom directory called students. Okay, and so if I do an ls.lh, you can see that here this is a directory here, and this is a file here. Okay, and that's based on the fact that there's a D here for the directory, and we don't have a D above it. Okay. Alright, so now we have a custom skeleton directory. So in the future when I create an account, I'm going to point it to this custom Skell directory instead of the Skell directory when I create it. So let's go back to cd/, and now what I want to do is do a user add, and I want to create a home directory for this user. I want to create a comment for the user, or description. I want to call it Jethro Bodine, and I want to create the custom skeleton contents into the home directory of Jethro, which will be at /home Jethro, and so I want to point it to the etc Skell custom rather than just the skeleton file or directory. And so now I want to do this for Jethro, enter, and that creates it. Alright, so let's go back to the home directory, and let's do the listing there and see what we have. And we have a Data Pioneer, an Ellie, and a Jethro now. Okay, and now I want to get into the Jethro type directory, and let's take a look at the contents of that. You can see now that we have more than what we had in Ellie's. We have the .bash logout, the .bash rc, and the .profile, but we also have a default .text and a students subdirectory as well. All right, for the Jethro account. Okay, so let's take a look at, let's set up a password for Jethro. And we're going to create that as password 1. Okay, successfully set up. And so now if we go into the etc shadow file, you can see that we have Jethro's account in here, and that it has a password set up as well. And so we should be able to log in to both of those. I'm in root right now, so I'm going to get out of root. So I'm going to do an exit, get out of root, go back to my default account, because root can log into anyone's account, regardless of whether it's locked or not, and I'll lock that in a moment. Let's get into Ellie's, and so I'm going to do a switch user to, and I'm going to get into our environment as well, Ellie. Okay, switch user to Ellie. It's going to ask me for a password. That is password. And now I'm in Ellie's account. I'm at Ellie at Data Pioneer -KDE Neon, and I'm a regular user here in that process. I'm going to exit out of that, get back to my account. I'm going to SU into Jethro's account, and his password is password 1. Okay, so I'm able to get into Jethro's account. All right, not a problem. Let me exit, get back to here. Let me get back into as root. So I'm root now, and so let me lock Ellie's account. To do that, I use the password command and a small l -l Ellie, the account I want to lock. Tells me that the password expiry information has changed. And so now if I look at the etc shadow file for users, you can see that Ellie still has a password, but the account's been locked because there's an exclamation mark in front of that password as opposed to a $sign here. Okay. All right. So if I try to, if I get out of root and I try to log into Ellie's account again, so I'm going to do a su Ellie and enter the password of password. It won't accept it. It says the authentication failure. The reason for that is because Ellie's account's been locked out. Alright, so to unlock her account, I need to get back in as root. And now I need to run password -u for unlocking the account. So little l for locking, little u for unlocking. Okay. It's been changed. So let me exit here. Let me su into Ellie. And enter her password, and I can get back into her account. So her account is now unlocked, and if we looked at the shadow file, we could confirm that the exclamation mark now has been returned to a $sign. But she has the same password. Okay, so that's a little bit about the user management. Initially, you remember I had Ellie being logged in, and I had set up a comment for her and done some other things. I had not given her the contents though that I gave Jethro. If I wanted to change that, I would use the usermod command. And let's take a look at a man page on usermod. You can do things like append, add the user to a supplementary group. You can change the comment. You can change the home directory with a D. You can do expiry date, etc. So let's do an expiry date on Ellie's account. And so to do that, when I would do a usermod dash E and 2018 dash, and this is February, and today's date is the well, let's do expiry for the, let's say the 25th of February, okay, for Ellie. Usermod. Oh, I'm Ellie, can't do that. Let's do, sorry, login as root, and need to get in as root to do it. So let's do usermod E 2018-02-25 Ellie. Okay, so her account now should be expiring on February the 25th of this year, 2015. And I did that through the modification usermod command in Linux. So let's go back to the less of etc shadow, and we can see that Ellie's account now shows an expiry here of 17587. Her account was created on 17572, which is today, and then on 17587 it's going to expire. Alright, that's 17,587 days after the Unix epoch. Alright, so now we've done that, let's clear the screen, and let's look at another command called group add. Alright, and we can do that with man group add, and we can see that allows us to create new groups in the system. We can use a little g for the global default group that we're creating. We can use a P for password on the group. We can do other things in here as well. Alright, and so let's do this. Let's create a group called students in the system. And so now if we type in ls of etc group, you can see that we have a new group added here called students, and this group ID is 1005. Okay, I had created another group earlier called faculty. It's 1004. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to delete the faculty group. So I'm going to do a group del faculty, and let's go back to the less. Let me use the up arrow of etc group, and you can see now that faculty group that we had there is now gone. All right. Okay, and so let me go ahead and re-add that group again. So let me create it again. Group add faculty. Right, so we've created now two groups, students and faculty. Now what I want to do initially here is add Ellie to the students group. Alright, and so to do that it's going to require usermod, and I'm going to add her to the auxiliary group of students. What I mean by that is I'm not going to remove her from her current group of Ellie, but I just want to append to that another group called students for Ellie. Alright, and so now if I go back to the less of etc group, you can see that Ellie now belongs here to the students group. Alright, and let's go back, and now let's do a usermod, and let's add Jethro to two groups, students, comma, faculty, no space in between, Jethro. Alright, so now let's go back to the less of etc group, and you can see that Jethro now belongs not only to students, but he also belongs to the faculty group. So we've added him to two groups in the system using the usermod command and the -g option or flag to add him to 2 supplemental groups simultaneously. Okay, let's go back out here again, and let's see what I want to do next. Now that I've got Ellie, Jethro created, I've got groups added, I've shown you how to delete groups, I've shown you how to add users to supplemental groups, I've shown you how to create a custom skeleton directory and then add a user to that. Let's go back into the Etsy Skell custom. Alright, and let's I want to do, I want to make another directory called downloads. Capital. Okay. And so now if we look at the listing of that, you can see that there's a downloads folder now in there. Alright, and for my reason for doing that is now I've updated the skeleton custom directory. Clear the screen. I want to create another user. I'm going to call it user 3. And so I'm going to call it user add user 3 c-c user. This is user 3. Okay. -m to create a home directory, and now I want to do a -k and redirect these directory. That's going to be the skeleton directory for this user, which is Etsy Skell Custom and user 3. I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Let's go back. Clear. Let's take a look at that command again. User add. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay, let's go back. Let's take the first user 3 out. Okay, so user add -c, this is user 3, -m to create the home directory, and -k to customize the scale, and then user 3 at the end. And now it's created it. And so now if we go back to CD home and do a long listing, you see that there's a user 3 along with Ellie and Jethro. If you get into user 3's home directory and take a listing of that, you can see now that that user has a downloads folder that Jethro and Ellie did not have. So we can customize, we can call it something else. We didn't have to use the same name over again. We could have called it Scale Custom New or something like that, but I just chose to override it. And so that we've now appended that, and so now from going forward, every other account that we create in the system is going to get a downloads folder added to it. Okay, so that's a great thing to be able to do. So let me clear the screen. Let me exit out of here. Let me exit out altogether. Let's get back to the GUI, and I want to get into User Manager here in the GUI. User SER Manager. Okay, that pulls that up. And let's go to full screen. And you can see that I have myself. This is user 3, Ellie Mae Clampett, and for whatever reason Jethro for some reason is not added in there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, and so with Ellie Mae Clampett, I want to click on her account, and you can see she has no picture. She has her username of Ellie. Ellie Mae Clampett is the real name, and that's from the comment that we put in for the description and using the C flag. I'm not going to worry about an email address for her. I'm not going to enable her as administrator. I am going to add a picture for her, and so I'm going to click in that box, and I'm going to load that picture from a file. Alright, and so that I'm going to go to the pictures folder on my system and select Ellie Mae and click OK, and that adds her picture. So I've got a picture of Ellie Mae here in the system I'm going to go ahead and apply that and click OK. I need to apply it, and prompted me for my credentials. And let's see. Let's try it again. Prompted me for credentials, and I bypassed it, so it probably is going to fail. And let's go back in again. I doubt if Ellie Mae has a picture here, so we'll go back in. I don't see a picture for her. And so let's go back and repeat the process. Need to slow down this time. Load from a file, from the pictures folder, directory, Ellie Mae. Click OK, and then it should prompt me for my credentials to add her when I click apply. And I'm going to put those in. Okay, and click OK. And so now Ellie Mae, if you go back into User Manager, should have a picture off to the left-hand side in the GUI itself. Okay, and there she is. You can see her pictures there. Okay, so let's cancel that. Alright, so this has been a quick video on user and group management in the Linux system, specifically KDE Neon 5.12.0 based on Ubuntu. Have a nice day.